Hi, prayer partners. Hope you're having a good day. Last week we were talking about John chapter 15 along our theme that we've been looking at of trust and obey. That all things work together for good and that God is always watching over us. Last week in John 15, we talked about that verse, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. And he meant that literally. Apart from him, we can't accomplish anything for the kingdom of God. And he goes on to talk about to his disciples, he says in verse 10, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. Now you got to get that. He said, you've got to keep his commandments. You got to be in close fellowship with him. That's that abiding in him. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I can almost see those disciples turning this over in their mind, and they were of the mindset of, in that Old Testament, 613 commandments. We've talked about that a number of times before. But Jesus said, let me just boil all that down and put it in a very small package so you can understand this a little easier. And he says, verse 11, these things I have spoken unto you, that my joy may remain in you, and that your joy may be full. And to those disciples, 613 commandments and joy, that just did not compute or add up. And so he goes on to say in verse 12 there, and this is my commandment. In other words, let me put all this real simple for you and put all those 613 commandments under one umbrella. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. That word as there in that verse, love one another as I've loved you, is an important word in that verse. It means to the same degree and intent. In other words, Jesus is saying, I'm not asking you to do anything for anybody else that I've not been willing to do for you. And he said, love one another as I have loved you. How did Jesus love us? He loved us unconditionally. He loved us supplyingly. He gives us everything we need to be successful at following his commands and walking with him. He's the vine. We're the branch. We're the ones receiving nutrition from him. We're the ones who are getting everything we need to survive from him. We're the ones who are drawing from him. The branches draw from the vine. The vine doesn't draw from the branches. And this is an amazing thought to me. The vine is stationary. It doesn't move. It doesn't go anywhere. But the branches are the ones that spread out and go out. And that's what he wants us to do in this world, to go out, reach, and touch other people with his love. And he says, I want you to love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than he laid down his life for his friends. And that's exactly what Jesus did for us. He laid down his life for us. And he says in verse 14, you are my friends if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master's doing, but I've called you friends. For all things that I have heard from my Father, I've made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you. And then again in verse 17, he repeats it. He said, these things I have commanded you, that you love one another. In verse 12, verse 17, he repeats that same thing. Love one another as I have loved you. These things I command you, that you love one another. Now, I want you to pay close attention to that. He didn't say, I want you to tolerate each other. He didn't say, put up with each other and get along as best you can. He said, I want you to love one another as I have loved you. A willingness to lay down our life for those who curse us, for those who despitefully use us, to love those who have done everything they can to make us mad. Isn't that exactly what we did to Jesus before we came to know him by faith? And unfortunately, even after we come to know him by faith, there are those times we act in a manner that we're not proud of. And he says, I want you to love one another just the same way I loved you. I'm at a conference this week down in Pulaski County. Matter of fact, they've had this conference now. This is the 18th year in a row, and they've asked me to come and invited me to be a part of it every year. And I am so thankful. Through this conference, I've been able to meet pastors and be invited to go to churches for revival, and just all kinds of doors have opened up because of that. And this week, the theme for their conference is forgiveness and soul winning. And as I've been thinking about that for the last several months, preparing for this, the thought has reoccurred to me numerous times. Forgiveness and soul winning go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. If there's no forgiveness in your heart, if there's no willingness to love others as Jesus loved us, you're not going to be much of a soul winner. You're not going to be concerned about others. You're not going to be reaching out to lost people to invite them to Jesus. And if we're out soul winning, if we're not willing to extend forgiveness as well as receive forgiveness, we're not going to be very successful at it. Those two things are intrinsic. They go hand in hand and cannot be separated. And that's what Jesus is getting here in John chapter 15. Love each other as I have loved you. Don't tolerate each other. Don't just put up with each other, but love each other. You know, I've found that to be real easy to love other people who love me. Doesn't take much effort. But where it really gets tough is loving those folks who have been unloving to me. Trying to witness to somebody who has cursed you, has told you they don't want what you've got, they don't want what you're offering, they don't want to hear anything about all that, quote, religious stuff. I had a guy tell me that one time. He said, I don't like religion. I don't want nothing to do with it. I said, I agree 100%. He looked at me kind of funny, and I said, I'm not here to talk to you about religion. I'm here to talk to you about a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And there's a big, big difference between a relationship with Jesus and between religion. Religion's never got anybody their sins forgiven. Religion's never going to get anybody to heaven. Religion's never going to get anybody to change their life, to be willing to love others as Jesus loved us. Religion won't do that. But when we surrender to Jesus and realize he is the vine and we're just the branch, I'm abiding in him and his love abides in me. I'm not worthy of that. I don't deserve that. If I got what I deserved, I'd be burning in hell right now, and so would you. We have that. We have it given to us because God loved us enough to send his only son to die on a cross so that you and I could be forgiven. Easter season's coming up real soon here. We're going to be talking about the empty tomb, the risen Lord, all of those things. And he told us clearly through his word, love one another as I've loved you. So trust and obey. If I'm going to love somebody who's been unlovely to me, I'm going to have to trust God that he is able to redeem this mess and take care of it. If I'm going to love others as Jesus has loved me, I've got to be willing to obey him and to go to those who are unlovely. If I'm going to trust and obey, I've got to love my brother to the same degree and intent that Jesus loved me. Is it easy? No. Is it worth it? Absolutely. That's where the joy in the Christian life comes, is when we surrender to him and when we trust and obey. So this week, as you're going about your week, last week I challenged you with the lyrics of a little song. I'm just a branch abiding in the vine, just a skin that's been filled with new wine, just a piece of pottery that holds a treasure divine. That's all I am. That's all I am. That's all I am. Apart from the vine, this branch can do nothing. Apart from the vine, you can do nothing. Jesus made that real clear. And when we love each other as he loved us, we produce fruit, and much fruit. And that's what Jesus wants. God bless. Have a great week. We'll talk to you later.